All righty, welcome back to another episode of Legals. We are here today to speak with you. Of course, we have our legal Luby Murfield. We have Miss Alana Greenway. We've got Miss Jamila Little. We've got Miss Tanya O'Connor. And then we have myself, Lisa Knox. And so we are your legals. So it's time, this episode is really on time because it's time to vote. And in order to vote, you need to know, something about the candidates. So we're bringing to you several episodes of candidates so that, they can talk with you and answer our questions. So today, our first candidate is Mr. Michael Owens, who is a local attorney here in the Tampa Bay area, who is running for State House of Representatives, District 59.
That's right.
So, Tanya, let's go ahead and take that away, Legal.
So I'm delighted to have Michael on as our first political candidate. Michael is a dear friend of mine, and I will say a pillar to the Brandon community. A little bit about Mike. He grew up in Brandon. He attended Burns Junior High School and Bloomingdale High School, which is where my daughter goes.
Oh, good.
Yeah, he's been a small business owner in our community for more than 15 years. And through his consumer law practice and his community service with the Rotary, Center State Bank's Advisory Board, and the Angel Foundation, he's seen firsthand the needs of our community. This is his first time running for office, although he has thought about it for some time. He believes in less government and would like to keep taxes low. He'd also like to enforce federal immigration laws, keep criminal illegal aliens out of our communities, and improve much needed infrastructure. He has deep roots in our community, and ladies, join me in welcoming Michael.
Thank you, ladies, for having me today, too. I'm a fan of the show. It's an honor to be here.
Excellent. Thank you for coming. So, Michael, what prompted you to run for office?
Sure. Yeah, if you would have told me 10 years ago I'd be running for office, I would have told you were crazy. As a matter of fact, my former business partner, Ross Spano, had this seat for many years while we were partners. He's now a United States congressman. So the seat actually, the way the district works in District 59, we're what's called a purple district. Okay, we're a district that has a pretty even mix of Democrats and Republicans. Then we got about 25,000 independents that are going to determine our election. So I love our district. Most Republicans, they want to run in maybe a little safer district. I love the district because I love the diversity of our district. I love the people of our district, how they come from different walks of life. So I was raised in Brandon, so I've seen it go from a dairy farm town, citrus town, to what it is today. So, but with that, we have lots of challenges. So I think it's good to have someone that understands the lay of the land and understands what the district has been through and the needs that we have moving forward.
All right. Well, as a freshman, what would be your two primary objectives in terms of introducing or supporting legislation?
Sure. One really big one, and this is across the board for Democrats, Republicans, and Independents. When I go around, I used to be able to go around to people's doors and knock on their door and shake their hand and ask them what's important to them. Now with COVID, I can't do that. So I'm limited to calling people on the phone, and a lot of times they think I'm a telemarketer and they hang up on me. So, so that's been a little bit of an issue. And I'm somebody, I like personal contact. I like to see people in person. But to answer your question, the biggest issue that's facing our district that everyone talks about is infrastructure, roads, and the traffic. That it's just a major problem. So many politicians have talked about, helping relieve some of the pressure off 301, Riverview, Big Bend. Tanya, you probably know that area very well. And what we need to do is we need somebody that's going to work with FDOT and speed up these projects. And work with our county commissioners. I've been endorsed by Stacy White, who's a county commissioner that I really admire. And one of my first plans, and the most important thing I think to my district, is to get some more exits off 75. We need more arteries there for people to be relieved for traffic wise. So that's really the first thing. Another thing that I'm very passionate about for my district, and it leads into probably a lot of other questions on how we are to respond to getting our workforce back working, is I think we need more vocational opportunities for young people and older people now. You have to drive out to Tampa Bay Tech to go out and learn to weld, learn to do AC, learn to do auto mechanic. You got to drive all the way out there. And there are so many people. I really admire people that can do things with their hands because I'm not very good at that stuff. But we need to cultivate those skills so that people can enter the workforce immediately after leaving high school. I always tell people, one of my good friends, he went to Tampa Bay Tech, did auto mechanic. His senior year, he was able to work for Furman Chevrolet and get credit. Then they hired him. He's been there 20-something years. He runs Furman Chevrolet. He makes a lot more money than a lot of the lawyers I deal with. And I always tell people too, I used to be on every billboard in Brandon. You used to see my ugly mug everywhere, right? But now you don't see it because 1 Hour AC and Ben Franklin Plumbing, they pay the max for the billboards. So my point to all that is not to discourage people from going to college, but to encourage them to cultivate a skill. And I think that our district is ripe for it because we have so many schools in our district, probably more than any other district in Hillsborough County. I think we have more schools, but we don't have vocational opportunities. So I would like to work on that as well. Also, just for an honorable mention, I know you said two, I think that we need to kind of lessen some restrictions on occupational licensing, make it easier for people to get to work, for example, hairdressers, things like that. We need to maybe lessen that. I'm a big proponent of lessening the size of government, letting people, if they have a skill, use it without a lot of red tape. So those are probably three major things that I'd like to work on when I get to Tallahassee. And the main reason is it's what's important to our community. It's not, I don't look at it as things that I personally want to accomplish or work on. I look at what's important to my whole district, whether you're Republican, Independent, or Democrat, what's important. And those three things kind of stand out in our district.
All right.
Michael, I don't know if there's a feedback here. Michael, I love everything you've said. And the biggest thing that sticks out is what's important to our community. So my question really stems from, I know you have offices here in Brandon. You also have them in South Tampa, and you live in Tampa. How would you respond to those who suggest that you're not in tune to the needs of the residents in the Eastern Hillsborough County?
Okay, well, that's fake news. I actually, I live in Brandon. I live off Bell Shoals Road. I've lived in Brandon my whole life, other than going to law school up in Michigan. I lived in Apollo Beach for a couple years, and I lived in Tampa 1 year. But I'd say for about 37 years, I've lived in Brandon, a lot longer than any of my opponents.
You're telling me.
There was an article written a while ago, I think, to that effect. I've owned lots of property. I'm a real estate attorney by trade, and I've been in real estate my whole life. My family were builders in the 80s. So I've bought and sold. As a matter of fact, this building we're in, I own this building at one time. I just recently sold it, and I'm leasing it back. And this is my Hyde Park office, and this is where I mostly work, in Hyde Park. But I do work in Brandon. So it's actually the opposite of what you said. I actually live in Brandon and work in Tampa, not live in Tampa and work in Brandon. So it's the exact opposite. So I don't know where that came from, but yeah, I live off Bell Shoals where they're doing all the construction right now.
And that's why we have these, it's great to have these conversations, because we got to know, the viewers have to know the difference between what's news and what's fake news. Because if you don't know what the candidate stands for, you don't know where they actually, where the heart is, you don't really know if this candidate is for you. So I'm glad you cleared that up.
Yeah, well, a lot of times too, they try to look you up. And for me, being heavy in real estate, I own and sell property in Tampa, Apollo Beach, Brandon. So, I've owned lots of property. So if they're looking at warranty deeds on public record, that could be where they're making the mistake. That's the only thing that I can decipher. But I have homesteaded property in Brandon, and I'm not moving. It's my home.
All right.
I guess the question is, are you home shopping, right?
Yeah, no, I'm not home shopping. I have, as a matter of fact, though, I'm refinancing. I'm refinancing down to a 15-year. My sister is a mortgage broker. I got like a 2.375 interest rate on it.
Shut up. Wow.
Yes, I've heard that the interest rates are great now.
Oh, it's crazy. So my sister's one of those people where we're only a year and a half apart, so we're extremely close. And she has like knows my social security by heart, has all my financial information. So she sends me an email, says, hey, guess what? You're refinancing to a 15-year. So I guess that's what.
Okay.
I love it. Sounds like a great older sister, I guess.
No, she's a younger sister.
She's a younger sister.
But by a year and a half, but she's by far the best of all of us. I always tell people the way my family works is us men look like we're in charge, but the women we just get on the bus and they tell us where to go, and then they wind us up and let us talk. That's basically
wise man.
Hey, Michael, I had a follow-up question to, I guess, one of your answers to the first question that was asked. You talked about some of those restrictions that you wanted to essentially get rid of for some occupational licenses, and you mentioned hairdressers. I'm just curious as to what kinds of restrictions you're talking about.
Yeah, well, they make education requirements, continuing education requirements are important. You got to pay high fees in some cases to get the license. There's and that's for pretty much every license. So I'm not saying to get rid of licensing. We got to have regulation, right? But what I would like to do is make it cheaper for people and maybe a little less restrictive, especially
more accessible to.
Accessible, yeah. Exactly. So people that are hands-on people, I just use the hairdresser as an example. Okay.
Okay.
But there's other examples too. But hairdresser is something where someone could get right to work tomorrow on that, right? So if they know how to do it, they know how to cut hair. So we don't want to make it where it's a 3 to 4 month process for them to get their license, and the educational requirements are extensive. We need our district getting back to work. As a matter of fact, my district, if you drive down Highway 60, Bloomingdale or Lumsden, you'll see besides Progressive insurance, we're a small business based community. So what that means is we have lots of businesses where there's 10 employees and less. Heck, I'm one of those. And I think it's just real critical to help get them back to work or help get people started back to work. There's a lot of people that have lost their jobs now. They're on unemployment and they're going to have to go to work for themselves, maybe, possibly. And my district's a great place to do it because we're overpopulated there. But in order to do that, you need licensing. So my point to that is just I want to make it easier. And that's what they do in the legislature. They create those parameters on what it's required to get a license. So I would say across the board, it would be very difficult unless it was something that's a dangerous thing where you have to maybe welding and stuff like that, where you need to keep those restrictions kind of high with knowledge. But anything else, I want to get people back to work. My district's hurting right now. We've got to get back to work.
I think our country is.
Yes.
That segues us into what'll probably be our last question for purposes of saving or remaining on time. Michael, what do you see as state lawmakers' role in promoting equal justice and equality in our country? It's a huge undertaking. It's a very broad objective, but what measures do you personally intend to take to advance the cause of equal justice and equality for your constituents in Eastern Illinois?
Sure. Well, one thing I'm for is criminal justice reform. I think we have too many people in the jails for getting caught with a marijuana bag on them or something like that. I think that's really important. But one thing I'm not for allowing judges to go outside the minimum sentencing if they feel like they should do that. I do not. I am against activist judges. I am for the separation of powers. I know a lot of people stand differently on that because they may say, well, this particular person, it's a first-time offense. We should be able to go away from what the law says that they have they have those points they have to work within. I think they should have to work within those points. If we want to change the laws, let's change the laws. I'm for that, but I'm not for activist judges. Another thing that I think is real important too, when it comes to especially with what's going on right now, when we're talking about arrests and we're talking about people in jail and who should be there and who shouldn't be. My big issue with the system is not really necessarily to when someone is initially arrested. My big issue with the system is what happens after that. And what I mean by that is I don't do any criminal law, but two of my best friends, probably the top 3, 4, or 5 attorneys in Hillsborough County, they handle big time cases. But where I see the disparity is whenever you're in there for that initial arraignment, right? People are in there, and what happens is you either get a public defender or you can pay for a private lawyer. And what I see is people that have committed the same crime, a lot of people of color are serving longer sentences. And the difference is whether or not they can hire someone like all of us, right? Whether they can hire a private lawyer. And I'm not knocking the public defender, okay? What I'm saying is they just have an enormous workload. They're usually young. So I find that there's a big disparagement in sentencing. And I think that's something, it's a hard thing to try to figure out what do we do about that, because we're private lawyers. But I think that's one of the big issues that I see is sentencing. And then another issue too is it kind of bleeds over to school choice. I'm a big school choice person. Not that I don't like the public schools. I'm a mixture of public and private schools. But I think that people in blighted areas should have the opportunity to send their kids to private schools, whether or not they can afford it or not. I think the money should follow the child. I think there's a real inequality and injustice in that when a child is stuck to going to school in a bad school that's not performing. I think that's something that we can do at the root from the very beginning. So I think one of the most inequality or inequitable things that I see are when kids in blighted areas are stuck going to a bad school, a D or F school, because their parents don't have the money to send them to a private school.
All right. Well, those are all good points, Michael. Viewers, thank you for joining us today. If you're interested in learning more about Michael and his platform, please go to Michael Owens. It's votemichaelowens.com, I believe. And do follow us on Instagram and Facebook and also YouTube. We do have other candidates coming on, so please stay tuned and feel free to drop questions for Michael in the comments below. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, ladies. Had a great time.
Michael.
Bye.
Bye.